Well, the U.S. inching closer to a nuclear deal with Iran despite profound concerns from Congress and Israel and others that President Obama is giving up too much for too little.
They have not yet made, the kind of concessions that are, I think, going to be needed for a final deal to get done. But they have moved, and so there's the possibility.
Question is any deal a huge mistake? Joining us now is the governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker. Governor, good morning.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
So you've expressed deep skepticism about this deal, and you've said that any president coming after Obama would not have to necessarily abide by the deal. How does the United States, in your view, prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, and is military action against Iran on the table?
Well, I think we need to be aggressive with Iran and others in the Middle East. And let's think about this for a minute. I'm in Florida today. I was just in South Carolina a few days ago. Scott knows I was just in New Hampshire last week and the weekend before in Iowa. And I got to tell you, people all across this country are worried. They're worried because we've got a president who drew a line in the sand and allowed people to cross it. We've got a president who calls ISIS the JV squad, Yemen a success story, and now Iran a place we can do business with. This is a place where the supreme leader just about a day ago said that when people were yelling death to America, yes, and yet we're trying to negotiate with this very same country. Real serious concerns about letting them have a capacity to get a nuclear weapon, which would not only be a problem for Israel, it would be a problem for the entire world, and we need to be aggressive in pushing back on that.
Well, Governor, thanks for joining us. It seems like our foreign policy is actually upside down. What would you do differently that the president and this administration is not doing?
Yeah, it seems like the sequel to the movie back in the 80s, Trading Places, where Israel's our ally, Iran is not, and yet this administration at least seems to be doing it the opposite direction. I think we need to be aggressive. We need to pull back. We're certainly, as many have said, giving up too much, getting too little, opening the door towards a nuclear weapon in Iran, the use of a nuclear weapon there. Again, that's not only a problem for Israel that will open the door towards the Saudis producing their own. I think it opens up a global problem. We need to push back. We need to make sure they do not get that. And I think ultimately the United States needs to seriously look at reestablishing sanctions and working with our allies, particularly in Europe, to do the same.
Do you support Congress's involvement in this process? Because the president has basically said, listen, I'll let you know what the deal is, and then ultimately I have the ability through my executive authority to do whatever I want. And Congress, on the other hand, is saying, well, whoa, wait, Mr. President, advise and consent. It's our role to endorse or not a lot of these issues. What are your thoughts on that?
If this is a good deal, and if it's going to ultimately be something that's legally binding, then the Congress does have a role. I mean, that's part of the way the Constitution sets up the checks and balances out there, and we need a president who understands and respects that. We've had mixed messages from the Secretary of State, Secretary Kerry, who on one hand says it's a good deal, on the other hand seems to backtrack on whether or not it's legally binding. If it is legally binding and if it's a good deal for the American people and for the people of this world, then it's something that should be put before the Congress, and we need a president who understands that relationship between the two branches.
So apparently the Obama administration has done a lot behind the scenes to prevent Israel from taking military action against Iran. Do you think it's been wise for us to prevent Israel from doing that?
Well, again, it's just remarkable all throughout the Middle East, not only in this situation, but we have a president and administration who appear to have pulled out of Iraq for largely political reasons, and now we've got even bigger problems there. In fact, we have some of the same groups that were once aligned with us, now almost mortal enemies because of leaving them high and dry. In their case, they're getting assistance from Iran-backed troops, militias out there. We have problems, obviously, in Syria and Libya because of ISIS. We've got problems because this administration has left us in a void. People are looking for America to stand up and take leadership, to play a commanding role, to not do it alone. We need to act with Israel. We need to act with our other allies around the world. We need to work with our Arab partners like Egypt and Syria to show that we can put together a global coalition that will push back on Iran and will fight radical Islamic terrorism wherever it exists in the world, because we don't want it washing up on American soil. And
you referenced earlier that ISIS is referred to by the president as the JV. We all know that statement. And in fact, ISIS, as we all know, is al-Qaeda of Iraq, which the president did not leave a transition force, did not leave a quick reaction force, someone to usher and help that new government. What would you do right now to help curtail the spread of what ISIS is doing? Obviously, the beheadings and the heinous acts by this group. What would you do differently?
Well, again, I think you've got to put together a global coalition, and you cannot signal to your enemies how far you're going to go. So I've said I have not ruled out putting boots on the ground. I'm certainly not going to lead with that. I've got 3 wristbands on my arm that come from Gold Star families whose funerals I attended or who I worked with in the past. And I don't want to ever go to a funeral like that or anyone else like that. But for those men and for other men and women like them, I don't want to see that their lives have been lost in vain. And we need to make sure we take out radical Islamic terrorism wherever it is. That means building a global coalition. That means using a variety of things, from providing assistance in lethal force to special operations, to again, not ruling out putting troops on the ground. That's a last resort, but it's one we should not be singling that we're not willing to do if we're willing to take on this, I think, long-term generational risk.
So you're not taking anything off the table like the president has done, it appears. And in addition to that, you believe that that broad-based coalition, in addition to having all options on the table, is the way to go?
I think it really is. And again, you look at our allies, you look at, I was just in the United Kingdom back at the beginning of the year. Certainly they're looking for leadership. Others around the world, whether it's in Germany or Poland or Australia or Japan or Canada, we've got plenty of allies we've worked with in the past. But I also think there's the ability to bring together partners in the Middle East, certainly in the Arab world. You look at what's happened to that Jordanian pilot that was burned alive in the cage. You look at what's happened with Egyptian Christians. There's an interest even in the Arab world to stand up and take on radical Islamic terrorism. I just think for most Americans, the people I talk to listening to voters out there, they firmly believe it's better for us to take the fight to them than wait till it comes to us here on American soil.
So, Governor, it looks like Senator Ted Cruz of Texas is getting into the presidential race tomorrow. He's got a speech down in Lynchburg, Virginia. What's your reaction?
Well, I think for Republican voters and for Americans in general, it's great to have many excellent choices. What I hear when I travel this country is 3 simple things. Voters tell me overwhelmingly they want a new, fresh face. If we're going to take on someone from the past, in former Secretary of State Clinton, we need a face from the future. Secondly, they tell me they want someone with big, bold ideas from outside of Washington. And third, the most important thing I think I hear over and over again is they want someone with a proven track record. They want someone who doesn't just talk about it, but someone who's actually done it. And that's why I think there's incredible interest about the possibility of us getting in the race. If there's others out there, so much the better to have many great choices out there. But I think being a governor with a proven record certainly is something voters are looking at very closely.
And we know of your record in Wisconsin, obviously unemployment lowering, and your battles. I've had to fight for your job a couple of times. What is your message to the people of America? What can you do for America as you have done for Wisconsin?
Well, if we chose to get in this race, obviously I think a lot of people who looked at 100,000 protesters 4 years ago taking on those challenges, they know if we say something, we're not going to back down. We're going to do exactly what we promised. I think people have seen that we don't just fight, but we fight and win for the hardworking taxpayers. And if I chose to get in this race, and if I was ultimately had the honor of serving, I know that they would have an advocate every single day that would get up and figure out how to work, to fight, to listen to first and foremost, but then to fight for the hardworking taxpayers of this country and to win for them, that they would have an advocate so that the hardworking taxpayers of this country would be back in charge again.
Governor Scott Walker joining us live this morning from Florida. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah, we're looking forward to your decision.
Thank you.